Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big.
That doesn't sound great. Does Asmon have nothing to say about the fact that Trump basically just acknowledged that we're probably going to have a recession?
And now we've got tariffs and the market has been going down.
Well, not much. I mean, in all fairness.
What? Who is advising him?
If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
Guys, in 100 years, we're going to be great.
I think he's very right about that, actually. I think that's a really, really, really good point.
There were a couple Asmongold videos that I wanted to watch today. He seems to be like really settling into his new role as just a full-on Trump propagandist. It's pretty funny because I think it was like last week or the week before somebody asked him point blank in his chat, like, what do you disagree with Trump on? And he listed like 5 things that were enormously consequential. Like, yeah, somebody asked him the question, like, what do you disagree? And he said like healthcare, abortion, and then like 3 other like enormous things. And it's like, wait, how do you explain your support of him then?
Very poorly run for 4 years. That you know better than anybody. Nobody covered it better than you, frankly. It's an honor to be with so many great people. We have really great people working with us.
You said America is back, momentum is back, our pride and spirit are back, and we're just getting started.
Right.
What do you specifically want America to look like in 4 years when you're done?
Well, I want a dynamic country where the private enterprise carries the day, not the government. And I want a strong country militarily. We need that nowadays. You can see that probably better than ever before. So I rebuilt our military. A lot of it was given away to Afghanistan, but it was a lot, but a very small portion, in all fairness.
None of it was given to Afghanistan.
But when you think about the billions and billions of dollars that was just handed over, but I rebuilt it. We're going to be.
It wasn't our military equipment. Like, it wasn't ours to give. That equipment belonged to the Afghan National Army. We didn't leave our equipment in Afghanistan. It was their equipment.
Building it again because we need that. We always need that. But we're doing a series of incentives, tax incentives and other things. The tax bill, I think, is going to be very important. The Democrats will fight us all the way. One thing I learned the other night, again, I could say, because it's my 5th such speech. And at the beginning, I said, I didn't know it was going to be as pertinent as it turned out to be. That no matter what I do, this group of people in front of us, I could come up with a cure to the worst disease that the world has ever seen. I gave other examples. I said, no matter what I do, they're going to sit there, angry, insolent. You just see it. I mean,
Insolent. He sounds like a like king from the 1400s, showing a rude and arrogant lack of respect. These insolent swine. These insolent Democratic swine in Congress.
you see.
I think part of that's true, honestly.
Of course you do.
I think people would rather see the country fail than see Trump succeed.
This is such Can we unpack this logic for a second? This is so stupid. I want Donald Trump to fail because I think his policies are bad and will hurt the country. That's why I want him to fail. I don't want him to fail because I'm petty. I want him to fail because his policies will hurt people. It will hurt the country. We're already seeing it now with the economy. His policies are hurting the economy. He is directly causing harm to our economy. I want his policy to fail. Like, if we construct a hypothetical and let's say a president ran on a platform of, you know, killing the firstborn child of every couple in the first fiscal year that they were president, I would want that president to fail. Obviously, I would be like, oh, well, I hope he doesn't pull that off because that's bad. But with Asmongold's logic, I guess I'm supposed to root for Trump to succeed, despite the fact that I do not think his policies will help anybody. I'm supposed to root for that. It's such a dumb, like, A to B logical kind of connection. It doesn't make any sense.
I do. I don't think this is something that's like exclusive to like Trump. I think people felt that way about Biden too, to an extent. But I feel like, especially like, you know, okay, well, we're not going to stand up and clap for, you know, some like kid with cancer or whatever. I mean, yeah, sure, it's optics and whatever, but if you play that optics game and you don't do that, you do kind of look like an asshole to average people, right?
I mean, what do you think is worse? Not standing up and clapping for Donald Trump? It had nothing to do with the kid. Not standing up and clapping for Donald Trump, or cutting federal funding for pediatric cancer research. What do you think is worse? If you want to focus entirely on optics, okay, sure. But it's just kind of absurd that the conservatives in this country were clutching their pearls, that the Democrats in Congress didn't stand up for Trump when he was talking about this kid with cancer, when Donald Trump's Doge literally cut federal funding for pediatric cancer research. One of those is so much worse than the other. So much worse. Not even in the same universe.
And so, yeah, it's about hate driven. Yeah, I would say so. It's a loser take? Absolutely.
You can feel it no matter what.
I don't want Trump to fail because I hate him. I want Trump to fail because his policies are regressive and harmful. That's why.
What I say, no matter what I do, no matter who it is, they won't stand, they won't applaud, they won't clap.
Yeah.
They'll just sit there with sour faces. And that's what they did. And, you know, it was interesting. I said, I wonder if I should put this in, but it worked out to be true. And I think by putting it in, I showed that it was true. And it's sad because we're doing great things in this country. This country's really got a chance to be pretty quickly great again. I think the country has got a big light over it right now. And I've been told this by even other foreign leaders. We had Modi, we had everybody. We had from France to India to about 12 that want to come in. They all want to be here. Every one of them wants to be here. We had the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom who was here, and he couldn't believe. He said the difference in terms of the feeling about the United States is very different. It feels that we're back, we're respected again. We are respected again. And in a way, we're back, and it's only been a few weeks.
And you spoke to the president of Mexico.
How about it, guys? Those of you that live outside of the country, what are the vibes like in Canada? What are the vibes like in Europe right now with respect to America? Are we back? Is America back? Are we back? You guys respect us again, which you can't put a price on that. You can't quantify that. You can't put that into a monetary value. Okay. That's something you can't box that magic up. Okay. It's like an intangible thing. You know, when Trump comes into office, all of a sudden you European peasants respect us again and respect your place in the world compared with us, with him and his strong leadership at the helm. If by respect again, you mean lost all respect, yes. It's just wild because like there's so many like international collections of polls that we can look to where, you know, foreign opinion of America was very high when Barack Obama was president and fell off of a cliff when Donald Trump was president the first time, and then went back up when Biden was president. Not as high as it was when Obama was president, but back up, like majority approval, right? And then fell off a cliff again when Donald Trump came into office. And yet, I have no doubt that Donald Trump fully believes that we are respected once again because people didn't respect Biden and they respect him. I think he fully believes that. I think he has no idea about these opinion polls that demonstrate the opposite.
Mexico today. I want to talk about tariffs because even as you're seeing this optimism and excitement, there's some nervousness over your tariffs. Markets have been selling off. We're not sure how to view it.
I'm gonna pause it.
Why?
I don't know if respected is the right word, but I think a lot of people are afraid. Like, I think that's definitely it because like he does, like Trump is like very unpredictable. And I think that like because he's so unpredictable, it makes people apprehensive about like doing anything against him, right? It
makes our allies question their alliance with us. You get situations like Europe saying, bro, we just cannot depend on the United States. They're not a reliable partner. You know, he's presenting this in kind of a neutral way, but I would be curious to hear like, well, do you think that's good? Our allies are afraid of us and our adversaries feel real great right about now. Vladimir Putin is certainly taking advantage of Trump withholding intel and material aid for Ukraine. They stepped up their attacks. Ukrainians died. Like, we are helping Russia kill Ukrainians. I don't think it's a good thing that our adversaries welcome Trump and our allies fear us. We're living in an upside down world.
And yeah, unpredictable. Yes. Yeah. I think that's basically it. Fear and respect. Yeah, the U.S. has no friends anymore. I feel like if being friends with somebody is contingent on you giving them endless money, then, I don't know. I feel like, you know, it's not really a great friendship, is it?
Endless money? Who are we giving endless money to? The f is he even talking about? I mean, we do have friends. Like, we have Viktor Orban. We have Vladimir Putin. Who else do you need? Kim Jong-un. Very respected. Stick to video games? Yikes. I feel the same way about Asmon. Yeah, I feel the same way.
Did you roll back or put a pause into some of the tariffs until April 2nd?
Because I wanted to help Mexico and Canada to a certain extent. We're a big country, and they do a lot of their business with us, whereas in our case, it's much less significant. We do very little with Canada by comparison. And I wanted to help the American car makers until April 2nd. April 2nd, it becomes all reciprocal. What they charge us, we charge them. It's a big deal, but what they charge us, we charge them. But this is short term, and I felt that for the good of the American car makers and the MCA, you know, the USMCA, that's Mexico, Canada. I thought it would be a fair thing to do, and so I gave them a little bit of a break for this short period of time.
But I asked you about this before, and I know you told me when I asked you, I said, you did use MCA, you put this together.
Yeah.
And then you come back and you change it up with these tariffs, and you said to me at that time, I did it because I can. I put an amendment in there, and I said in 6 years I can.
That's the funniest thing about all this, is that Trump is doing these tariffs with Canada and Mexico because he's complaining that we're being ripped off by the deal that his administration negotiated during his first term. None of it makes any sense. Obviously, it's ridiculous. Okay, so are you saying, Donald Trump, are you saying that you negotiated a deal where we were getting ripped off? Doesn't that speak ill of you?
Change it. But I think CEOs want to see predictability. They say, look, I have to speak with shareholders. I've got to make plans for CapEx spending.
Exactly
I can't if it's 20.
Yeah, that's I think one big reason why like people aren't spending money and people aren't investing money is they're afraid. They don't know what's going to happen. For sure. Reddit moderators just shut.
Is that good or bad, Asmon? Do you have an opinion on that?
Down pop culture. Remind me about that after I finish the video. I'll talk about it.
20% one day, and then it's off for a month, and it's 25%.
Yeah.
So can you give us a sense?
Canada places a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to 3 U.S. states, 1.5 million Americans starting Monday, costing almost $500,000 a day. What are the 3 states? Going to be red states? New York, Minnesota, and Michigan. Not quite. Okay.
Sense of whether or not we are going to get clarity for the business community?
Well, I think so, but you know, the tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up, and you know, I don't know if it's predictability. I think
so. That's not clarity.
No, I think that they say that. You know, it sounds good to say, but for years, the globalists, the big globalists, have been ripping off the United States. They've been taking money away from the United States, and all we're doing is getting some of it back, and we're going to treat our country fairly. This country has been ripped off from every nation in the world, every company.
I think this is an opinion a lot of people have, is that people view the relationship that the U.S. has with other countries as being one-sided.
Well, it's because they're not. Listen, like I've said this so many times. The United States does not engage in international aid programs because we're great people. We don't send money to Nigeria and Guatemala because out of the kindness of our hearts. We're not doing it because it's the right thing to do. We do it because it allows us to wield an ungodly amount of influence on the world stage. Like, America gets to set the tone and tempo of geopolitics and international trade in ways that benefit us both explicitly and subtly. You know, long story short, we take actions that increase our standing economically on the world stage for favorable trade conditions, and we take actions to ensure that we are the dominant military force in the world. We don't do these things because it's like it makes us feel good, and because, you know, God said to send money to the poor. It's not why we do this. So if we're sending aid to a country, we're doing it for some kind of political or economic reason, oftentimes both.
And they view that basically, like, we give way more than what we get. That's it. Yeah, we're a cash cow. Exactly. And I think that a lot of people are tired of that. And I think especially now because like money is like tight for a lot of people. That's not true. Who cares? Who cares whether it's true or not? At the end of the day, this is the way that people think. And this is the way, this is the reason why this is happening. It's an extremely common perception. Like I would say it's probably 70-80% of people feel this way. That if you ask like average Americans, do you think that the U.S. is getting more out of or spending more money out of its relationships with other countries? You would have probably over 80%. I'd say probably over.
But it's just the opposite could not be more true. Like, simple fact of the matter is we benefit enormously from our relationships with our trade partners. Just enormously benefit. In America, we buy so much shit. We have access to so many cheap goods and services. Even during an economic downturn like the kind that we experienced in 2022, even then, our economy was still the end of the world. You can buy a 70-inch flat screen TV for $400 on clearance in this country. You know, we you know, like in Russia, for example, in contrast, I believe I read a figure that they spend 40% of their paychecks on groceries. 40%. They spend 40% of their paychecks on groceries in Russia. So for as much as we complain about high grocery prices in this country, oh boy, it could be a lot worse. Be a lot worse.
Say that they're spending more money. Every country feels that way? Yeah, I don't know. But I think that's the way the U.S. feels. And so it would make some average Americans for cards. Yeah, but like then you're going to have that's, I mean, okay, you could say they're retarded or whatever, but like that's still the reason why a lot of people think that way. So yeah, that's it.
In the world, we've been ripped off at levels never seen before. Yeah. And all we're going to do is get it back.
Does he just, I think he does, right? But does he just like every few seconds, he just goes like, and it's just like an autonomic response. Like, it's not that he's super engaged with what he's watching. It's just, he feels the need to add his like affirmative kind of, yeah.
Back. We're going to get a lot of it back. We're not going to let people take advantage of us anymore. You know, we're the United States. I believe that if Kamala had won, meaning that whole ideology, Kamala and Biden.
Yeah. He doesn't even know what he's about to say. He hasn't even finished the sentence. He doesn't even know what point he's making. Like, Trump is teeing up the point. He hasn't made any point yet. And Asmon's just in there like, yeah.
And Obama, that whole group of people, if they had won, I don't think we would have had a country any longer. I think this was the most, somebody said it the other day, the most consequential election in 129 years.
To be honest with you, I think that 2016 was probably the most consequential election of my life. It's between 2000 election and 2016. 2020 was important. 2024 was important, obviously, but I think 2016, that was the big one because it was the control of the Supreme Court was on the line there. That's the reason why I'm inclined to say that 2016, I think, was probably more consequential than 2000. 2000 led to like the war on terror and big foreign policy moves like the quagmire that we bogged ourselves down in, and both Afghanistan and Iraq started on Bush's watch, and it would not have gone down that way if Gore had been president. So that matters, but in terms of like how it impacted things domestically, 2016 was a much more important year. The fact that Republicans and conservatives in this country have been able to secure a Supreme Court majority for at least the next 20 years, that is going to have ramifications that are vast and meaningful, like really impactful changes to the way that our country operates. Because Hillary lost an election in 2016. So 2024 and 2020, I think were, a close second and third maybe, but 2016 was the big one.
If they would have won, I don't think we would have had a country. Not only did we won every swing state. Remember, I was watching you.
Yeah, I think that definitely he's right about this too. Is that like Kamala Harris winning was like a big loss for like just woke ideology in general. It was a huge, massive loss. That was it. Yeah, and I think that that's what really kind of shifted things. It died. Yeah, it's basically dead now. And I think that that's really what people were. And it's kind of ironic.
Nope, we got a black Snape. We got a black Severus Snape in the Harry Potter show. Okay, woke is alive and well.
Because like Kamala Harris didn't really run on a lot of like woke issues, right? Like she didn't really play up very often that she was like, I don't know, like a minority.
The reason why I hesitate to say that woke is dead is because you should never underestimate Donald Trump's ability to galvanize the opposition. And right now, what do we see what do we see the administration doing? They're just massively overplaying their hand. Trump is behaving, and all of his sycophants in the media are behaving as though he has this huge mandate to do whatever he wants. And for whatever reason, he has decided to pursue a tariff policy that will materially hurt Americans. And that's not going to be tolerated for very long. So the anti-woke stuff, I think, if Donald Trump continues on this path, then he could very easily galvanize opposition against him. And you might see another rise of like wokeness. I don't know if you would see it to the level that we saw in 2020, because that reached kind of comical levels at times. Like it just got way out of control in a lot of ways. So I think if we do see sort of like a recurrence of wokeness or whatever, I think it'll probably be a little bit more tame than 2020.
Minority or a woman, like, yeah, obviously it was discussed, but like it wasn't like, for example, like I remember when Hillary Clinton ran, oh my God, that was the only thing that mattered, was that she was a woman, right? And so, yes, she did. I don't think that she really did, especially not compared to Hillary Clinton. Obviously, she brought it up. Of course, she brought it up.
Is he saying that Hillary Clinton ran on wokeness? What? What is he even talking about there?
But, and people would ask her about it a lot. But if I go back and I watch a lot of her speeches, she didn't bring it up very often. And that's, I think that's true. That's what I remember. And so anyway, that being said, I think that what really matters, though, is like what that means culturally, right? Why would you do differently? Nothing comes to mind. Yeah, I don't know. She definitely did not run on far left values. No, definitely not.
Just before the election you're talking about, I think he's going to win 4 or 5. We won all 7. And we won the popular vote by millions of votes. We won the number of counties by 2,500 to 500, 2,750 to 500. And it's amazing. The map is all red.
Which is why I was surprised at the Democrats' behavior the other night, because you delivered among the most diverse, expanded audience, Republicans, Democrats, Independents. Yeah. So is it just the Democrat leadership that does not see that?
Mm-hmm. There's something wrong with them. Mm-hmm. This is something, I can't even believe it. They lost an election in a landslide.
I think he's right. I do. I think they've been totally captured by identity politics. And even now that they've lost on it, and it seems like people are shifting away from it culturally, they can't let it go.
I mean, none of this is true. Like we see, for example, there was like a summit like a month ago where leaders within the Democratic Party, convened some kind of a summit to go over what they think the strategy should look like moving forward. And they released like a 5-point plan. Like the 5 big points were like, I can't remember what they were off the top of my head, but it was basically like pivot more towards the center, like move away from basically the big problem within the Democratic Party is that, so let's take small donors, for example. Like if you're engaged enough to donate money to political campaigns, chances are, ideologically, you are going to be well to the left of like the median voter that maybe doesn't contribute any money to campaigns. And so it might sound counterintuitive for Democratic strategists to say, we need to stop giving like these small donors like this much influence in, say, crafting policy. But the logic is sound if the small donors maybe represent 20, 30% of the party, and then the rest of the, 70, 80% of the party don't share those same values. You have to sort of like, then sort of pivoting to the center makes sense mathematically. You want to appeal to a much wider base. But that's not what I'm seeing at all. I'm not seeing the Democrats like I'm not seeing the Democrats after the 2024 loss running around saying, oh, we need to be more woke. Like or we need to be like more to the left. You're seeing the usual suspects, like progressive media pundits on social media or whatever. You're seeing them say, well, the solution is to like run to the left. But as far as the people that are in charge of strategy, they're not saying that. They're definitely course correcting after 2024.
Yeah, they've been totally captured by it. I don't know if they're going to be able to get out of it, honestly, at this point. It's gotten so bad.
I think they will.
They were talking about men playing in women's sports. When I looked the other night, I made a speech. The Republicans were going wild, and the Democrats were having their little signs up. Their little signs, their little tiny signs.
Do you think they can't let go because they don't have anything else? I think a lot of Democrats, I think that if you took names and titles and you just had people vote on different issues without a name or a party attached to it, I think that Democrats are actually, I think that in many ways they have the advantage policy-wise, especially with social policies.
True. Wow. Asmon with a good take. There we go.
I think that the majority of people agree with a lot of their social economic policies. But the problem is that they don't run on those policies. They
I mean, really? What does he think that Kamala ran on?
Focus on identity politics instead.
He just said a moment ago that Kamala didn't run on identity politics. He just said that like 3 seconds ago. And now he's saying that they ran on identity politics in 2024. I feel like you can't have both of these.
And I think that's what really alienates a lot of people, such as I would say like parental leave whenever you're working, different types of workers' rights. And
am I hearing a thunderstorm in his headset? Is that what I'm hearing? Because I was walking around today. It's like sun's out. It's a beautiful day today. And then I'm hearing this like thunder, like distant thunder. I'm pretty sure it's picking up from his mic.
An expansion of entitlement services, better health care. I would say like just things like that. Abortion. Yeah, abortion. Most people support abortion.
Well, rather, most people support like a woman's right to choose, right?
Straight up, they do. Most people support abortion. Now, that's false.
You hear that? Am I crazy? Do you hear that?
The vast majority of Democrats legal abortion, as do about 3/4 of conservatives. About 51% favor expansive abortion rights. So there you go. Nearly two.
Well, that doesn't tell the whole story. So it's like the last time I saw it was like somewhere between like 65 and 70% of the country believed that Roe v. Wade should have remained in place. And then there are like varying opinions on how restrictive we should be with abortions. So like I think that on top of the fact that like the vast majority of the country supports Roe v. Wade, it's also true that the vast majority of the country supports certain restrictions on abortions, like abortions after the 22nd week, something like that is what most people support. I think it's something like 99% of all abortions that happen before the 22nd week. And then I think if you were to like really get into the nitty gritty and like have the conversation with people, educate people on like why these abortions take place that late in a pregnancy, I think most people would probably support like, okay, would you support, an abortion, 1 week before the delivery because it was a non-viable fetus or it posed some kind of a health risk to the mother? I'm sure a vast majority of Americans would support that. 2/3
of Americans support abortion legally in all or most cases. So yeah, so a majority of people support abortion. Yeah, a majority of people support abortion. That's true. And this is true by every observable metric that you can find. And I know that now that doesn't mean you have to. And this is in the US, right? And so anyway, my point is that
I'm glad you clarified that. That doesn't mean you have to get an abortion. Oh, that's good to know.
Aside from that, I think that I think what's frustrating to a lot of people that are like, I would say kind of like me, is that I'm very much like I think we should have universal basic income, right? Like I'm a UBI supporter. I think it's going to happen. And so like, and I'm for like single payer healthcare, et cetera. But what really alienated me away and like why I would never vote, like I would basically never vote for a Democrat ever. And the reason why is because they support a group of people that will actively disenfranchise me based off of my identity. And I will never.
What? What is he talking about? We're going to get rid of white people, like white people's ability to vote? Either he doesn't know what disenfranchised means, or I don't know what it means. Disenfranchised means to deprive someone of a legal right, privilege, or immunity, especially the right to vote. When someone is disenfranchised, they are deprived of the right to vote. What the f is he talking about? Is there some policy that the Democrats have floated that I'm unaware of, where we secretly want to get rid of like my ability to vote? Like, what is he talking about? This is so insane to me that he's like, I support single payer healthcare, you know, protecting a woman's right to choose with respect to reproductive health. I support universal basic income. These are all very left-wing positions, right? Well, I guess the abortion one isn't like necessarily partisan, but he is afraid that the Democratic Party are going to deprive him of his right to vote. Therefore, he's never going to vote for Democrats. I just don't know what the f he's talking about. He just means that white men are no longer the presumed power group and that the attempt to correct historic racism, sexism, and homophobia is somehow hurting white men. All right, well, he needs to crack open a dictionary because that's not what disenfranchised means. Hutch, you are clueless. LOL. Wait, no, I'm not. You.
Or support somebody that will do that with no exceptions, just straight up. Like if somebody is going to put me at a disadvantage for any reason because of some immutable character.
You are sounding very autistic here. I don't understand what. Wait, no. How? What are you talking about?
I will never vote for them. Just straight up. Like if somebody is going to put me at a disadvantage for any reason because of some immutable characteristic, I will never vote for them. That's it. Like I won't.
What is? Can I get some specifics here? I want to know what Asmongold is afraid is going to happen to him and other, I guess, does he mean white men? How does he like think that he's going to be negatively impacted by, like, if Kamala won, like what bad things would have happened to him?
Won't vote for, and if they side with people that do that, I will never vote for them.
What a incoherent, like, he has these strong opinions on really impactful things. Like, you know, when we talk about like a UBI and like a robust social safety net, because he also said, it sounded like he said he was in favor of like paid family leave, and he certainly said single payer healthcare. I mean, these are very impactful things that would affect, you know, basically everybody in the country. And yet when it's time to go vote, he's focused on, he seems to be focused on identity politics here. He's inclined to support and vote for Republicans out of fear that he as a white man will be disadvantaged in some way. And in doing so, he's willing to back the party that stands in stark opposition to things like single payer healthcare and UBI. So it seems like on the issues that really matter the most, he has these very clear opinions on these things. And to me, when I think about like what, you know, why do I go vote? Like, why do I choose to participate? Why do I choose to engage in the political process? It's because I care about like the issues, and I care about the potential policies that would come to pass if this or that candidate wins an election. That to me is like the only sensible way to approach voting. Like, how's this going to impact people in the country? And he's focused on this kind of vague notion that him and people like him are going to be disadvantaged.
So yeah, it's a non-starter. It's an immediate non-starter, like instant decline, right? Because like, yeah, I don't want
on Twitch
white guy being disenfranchised. Well, whenever opportunities are provided for a person and I'm not part of that group, then yeah, I'm being disenfranchised.
Wait, I feel like he's making the case for DEI right now. Is he not making the case for DEI right now? Like, if you have certain groups of people that are historically, there are more obstacles in place in various sectors of the economy and industry, and home ownership, and then you have policies like DEI that seek to like rectify these situations, then I feel like he's making the case for DEI right now.
A zero-sum game? Yes, it is. And I will never vote against my own self-interest. Under no...
I will never vote against my own self-interest, but I'll vote for... listen, if you're a wealthy person living in America, then the Republican Party, they're going to be real good to you. They're going to cut your taxes. They're going to get rid of regulations. They're going to make it easier for you to compound your wealth. They're going to make it more difficult for people that make less than you to catch up to you. So I guess he's right. I mean, he's technically right there, right? But like, if for him to be like, oh, I support single payer healthcare and UBI, and I'm never going to vote against my own self-interest, so I'm going to vote for the Republicans. It just doesn't feel very coherent.
Circumstance for any reason. And I would also recommend everybody else to do the exact same thing. I think that's a smart thing to do. Don't be a martyr. And
well, I mean, listen, chances are that 99% of Asmongold's chat would benefit from single payer healthcare and UBI. So, if he was being, genuine in his suggestion that people vote in their own self-interest, then he's kind of making the case for the lion's share of his audience to support Democrats. But
anyway, so we're about gaming, by the way. You're right. You're definitely right. My stream is, I'm very lucky. I don't know what that has to do with it.
Oh, Lexi, he's touching on it.
And what's this here? You bet the neck, hook, line, sinker. What is this here? And we've had a lot of, there's really been a lot of cards in chat today. It's been really kind of impressive.
You're in the ditch, Asmongold. You really are a regard who has their head in their ass. You're so full of it. You bit the hook, line, and sinker. They set you up with a bunch of buzzwords, and they're going to have their foot on your neck in a year, taking your money. Okay.
So, what are you unhappy that I'm talking about here? Are you saying you're not going to vote for racists? No, I'm not. Says a millionaire.
Well,
if there's like an opportunity provided for somebody, and I'm not part of that group, then why would I support it? Like, really? Like, give me one good reason why I should support a group of people.
Well, in the case of being like wealthy and having more access to like privilege and luxury than other people, supporting policies that would benefit people who make less than you would just be like the sign of, I think, like a decent person, right? Like, listen, like, if the Democrats were promising to like literally take all of Asmongold's wealth away, then I'm not going to fault him for not supporting Democrats, right? But if the Democrats are saying like, maybe you need to pay a little bit more on the margins so that people that have less than you can live a life free from the toxic stress of poverty, I think that, there's nothing, you can be a fabulously wealthy person and still, I mean, look at Hassan, hyper-capitalist, lives a life of decadence and luxury that 99.9999999% of the world, people in the world throughout the history of the world have not experienced, and he still advocates for working class people. So there you go.
People who actively want to, give advantages to people that aren't me. You keep going on about DEI and wokeness when I don't even care about that. There are billionaires taking over the government. There have been billionaires taking over the government forever.
This person doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Oh my God. What? Daily reminder, Asmon and his mom received SNAP assistance? Jesus Christ, are you serious? Listen, and the off chance that Asmongold ever sees this, Asmon, I want you to tell me a time in history where you had literally the most wealthy person in the entire world have a seat in the administration of a sitting president and wield an ungodly amount of influence over the funding and regulations that govern the agencies that serve as a watchdog that keep that billionaire's companies in check. Like, we have never ever experienced like private capital and the federal government be married in this kind of way. We've never seen this level of just outward explicit corruption. It's just we are in completely unprecedented times here. The Soros stuff, like, talk to me, like, what do you think the Republicans would have been saying if Joe Biden invited George Soros to basically serve in his administration? And then George Soros was like exerting influence over the agencies that regulate Soros's companies. Like, what do you think the Republicans would be saying right now? They would be calling for like the gallows. It's not comparable at all. You know, the logic is really silly too. It's like, well, you know, like even if we took what he said at face value and just grant him that, okay, Republicans have been trying to take over the world since the start of the world or whatever. Fine. Or billionaires, I mean. Okay, so your position is like, well, it's always been the case, so let's just keep that in place? Like, I don't understand what the logic is.
I mean, I don't view this as like some kind of like unique evil. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but like, I'm not gonna view this as like some kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Now there's billionaires being involved. Yeah, no, this has been going on forever. Like, look at the amount
Doge and Elon, this shit has been going on forever? Really? Okay, give me a single time in history when this has ever happened on this level. Please, just give me one example of this happening on this level of involvement.
The money that the Koch brothers have invested into politics for the last 20 years.
It doesn't even come close to what Elon is doing right now.
Just because they did a better job at hiding it and they're not doing it as overtly, you think I'm supposed to like act like that's better? Absolutely not. There's a major difference between doing it publicly or doing it privately? Not really. I mean, I care about the effect of something, not necessarily the intent or like the way it's done.
Trump is going to have to pause the tariff talk. Dow tumbles 900 points. Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the markets right now. It's pretty bad.
My point is that I wanted to get to is that, yeah, I would never support anybody that would put me at a disadvantage. And that is a non-starter single issue for me. And I think that there are a lot of guys that feel the exact same way that I do. And if you don't feel the way that I do, I think you should.
And I said,
I feel like he's unintentionally, I'm going to assume 90% of his audience make under 60,000 a year, 70,000 a year. I don't know. I'm just going to make it up. And in that case, the Democratic policies would overwhelmingly benefit these people. Like, if you're rich, you don't need to worry about paid family leave. You just take that time off. Who gives a you got capital building off of capital, You got all this passive income. You're going to make money just by having the money at that point. So who gives a if you take time off? Take a year and a half off work to start raising a kid or whatever. Who gives a if you're making under $70,000 a year, it's going to be way more difficult for you to take off a year and a half maternity leave or whatever. But if we had a government program in place, much like the one that they have in Sweden they have a collective like 3 years of maternity leave. It's insane. And you can like the dad can give his time to the mom and vice versa. So if you don't use your time, you can give it to your partner and they can use your time. As an American, I hear that and I'm like, oh my, what? There's nothing stopping us from having that here in the richest country on earth. Okay. Paid sick leave, higher wages, more support for unions, which result in better benefits and higher wages for employees. Like the Democratic Party is the move if you're making under 70K a year for sure. So I agree with Asmongold. You should definitely not vote for the party that is not going to advance your own self-interest. And unfortunately, a lot of people in this country voted against their own self-interest in the last election. They were voting because Donald Trump was promising them peace and prosperity and no more woke and all this other shit. And then we have, fast forward to today and the markets are down 4.35% so far, the NASDAQ right now. And we're projected to have the Atlanta Fed is projecting a recession. And on top of that, Donald Trump is going to cut taxes for the wealthiest people in this country. You're going to get peanuts. You're going to get like $400 extra year over year on your refund. But the prices for goods and services are going to go up, otherwise known as inflation, because of his tariff policies. So the value of your dollar is going to go down during this presidency. If you're making under 100K or whatever, you are not going to experience the kind of relief that you were promised.
It's unbelievable. They don't get it. They don't get it now. Yeah. And I think they're going to end up being a minor party if they keep going like this, because people don't want to hear about these stupid ideas that they have.
People don't want the economy to crash. Above all else, in every country, all over the world, it's everyone's number one priority is the economy. Every time. People don't want recessions. People don't want jobless numbers to go up. People don't want the value of your paycheck to be diminished month over month over month over month over month, which is where we're headed right now. That's not just me saying that from a partisan perspective. The markets are telling you that today. The reason why the markets are tumbling today is because the people that are selling these positions don't have faith in our economy for good reason. Did Tesla go down 15% just today? Holy shit. This is what Tesla stock looks like today. Jesus Christ, bro.
Transgender for everybody. And again, the men and
this is happening. He's talking about trans stuff, you know, like this is like the Republicans think that, and they were right to a certain degree, right? Like they were correct when the economy was like doing well, as it was under Biden, you know, struggled for a bit in 2022 when the whole world experienced inflation and then improved every month for a year and a half. Donald Trump inherited, and just like he did in 2017, he inherited Barack Obama's economy. Our economy recovered after, you know, the biggest economic downturn since the Great Depression, and Donald Trump inherited that economy. He got the same thing this time around. He inherited a economy that had softly landed, and he's going to f it up. And he thinks, the Republicans think that they're going to be able to distract people with culture war shit like trans stuff. And I'm telling you, it's not going to work. If people are feeling the sting like they did in 2022, if people are feeling the sting when they go to the gas station, or when they go to the grocery store, or when they're paying rent, when they're paying their energy bills, they're going to stop caring so much about trans stuff. I promise you. Their survival instincts are going to kick in, and they're going to get pissed, and they're going to look for someone to blame. And Donald Trump's going to try to blame Biden, and it's not going to work. It is not going to work.
Women's sports, what is that, a 90-10 deal? I don't even know who the 10 would be.
Yeah.
But they're fighting for it. And I try and say to myself, because you always like to understand where your opponent is, whether it's in business or anything else, is there something I don't understand? But we don't understand it. You look at their theories on tax. You know, all my life I've watched politics. I've always liked it. I've watched it. I participated, but from the standpoint of a donor. But I participated. And all my life I've watched politicians, we will cut your taxes. We will cut your taxes. These people say, we're going to raise your taxes. This is the only time. It's never said, I've never heard it. They say it even if they don't mean it. We will cut your taxes. These people say that we're going to give you the biggest tax increase you've ever had. And that's what they're running on. And I tell Republicans,
what good are tax cuts if the value of your dollar plummets more than you got from your tax cut? It doesn't matter. You get, you know, whatever you're going to get from his tax cuts if you're making under $200K a year, you know, 400, 500 extra bucks a year or whatever. What's that going to matter if, you know, joblessness goes up to 6-7% and inflation ticks up to 4 or 5% or whatever? It's not going to matter. It's going to be a wash. It's going to be worse than a wash.
Take that night, because that was a great night. You got record ratings. You saw that. The highest rated speech like ever. Literally
not true. The address that he gave to Congress was the least ratings he got for any of his addresses to Congress. This man lives. This is what blows my mind about Trump supporters. I don't understand how you guys can't see what a blatant liar this guy is. Anybody can look up these ratings. This is public information. He just told Maria Bartiromo that his address to Congress last week was the highest rated address in the history of congressional addresses from the president. It was the least rated one that he's ever done. You voted for a corpse last election. Kamala Harris was a corpse. I mean, if I could cut off my left pinky and then make it so that Joe Biden would have won in 2024, he didn't drop out of the race and he would have won, I would do it. I would do it. I would cut off my left pinky to make it so that corpse was back in office again. Because I guarantee you, if that corpse was president right now, you would not see the markets tumbling like they are today. You would not see projections of a recession. There was a group of Nobel laureates, economists, Nobel laureate economists. There was a group of them that came out and said, look, America, if you elect Donald Trump, our economy is going to suffer. And if you elect Kamala Harris, our economy is going to grow and continue to improve. And here we are. What are we going to do?
Its kind.
He saw how many views that my YouTube video got.
Trump is trying to address it now. How's that going? You say Donald Trump is addressing the economy now. I mean, how's that going? How do you feel about the economy right now? Feel like that's going well? Do you think that this experiment is going well so far?
Yeah,
and
very
run
true.
your midterms on it, and show us. I'm talking about some young child with cancer.
Actually, to be honest with you, even if you're wealthy like Asmongold, I've been saying like, well, if you have money like Asmongold, maybe supporting Trump was the move. But I feel like wealthy people are probably really pissed today. The donor classes, they're eventually going to get pissed about this stuff. They're going to be like, I did not raise funds for Donald Trump to have him turn around and like tank my stock portfolio.
Young, beautiful girl, like
2 months and expecting miracles. No, I would just expect that you just don't willingly tank the economy. It doesn't take a miracle to not tank the economy. It just takes like sensible economic policy, like Biden, right?
Laken Riley, who was killed, and they don't get up.
Yeah.
And they don't salute the mother who's there devastated. Nungery, they don't get up and they don't salute the mother whose child was devastated. I mean, brutally killed. The young boy with cancer that wants to be a cop, and they don't get up and salute that child. They not only don't get up, they're angry. And the only thing...
Do you think they're angry because you cut federal research for childhood cancer? You think maybe that's why they're angry?
That happened.
The reason why they're angry is because their own tactics are being used against them. Democrats have been the masters of emotional manipulation and optics.
Oh boy. Wow. Pot in a kettle situation right here. If I've ever heard one. Holy shit.
That's the reason. And that's why Trump is so good at dealing with them, is because he has such a big background in entertainment, is that he knows how to do it better than they do because that's been his job.
Again, we're going to see how that manipulation holds up if Trump continues to tank the economy, which it looks like he's going to. Again, like if Trump were to reverse his tariff policy now, it would just be seen as an admission that his policy was stupid, which would reflect poorly on him, and people wouldn't like that. And so the best shot that Trump has is to like stick with the policy in the hopes that it actually does work, which it won't. Because at the very least, you give MAGA people cover to say, well, you haven't given them enough time to turn the economy around. You got to give it like 2, 3, 4 months. If he reverses it now, then the attack is just going to be like, well, what was the point of doing that to begin with? You took that much value out of the stock market over the last month for what? For nothing. You just cost people money for nothing. He's not going to do that. So he's going to stick with this stupid policy.
What was interesting really about it was that when I mentioned Ukraine,
that's the
and
reason.
People being killed, they started clapping. And that clap was led by Pocahontas.
I saw what you said, and I want to ask you about Ukraine and the blow up the other day with Zelensky. Let me stay on the economy for a moment, because there are rising worries about a slowdown. You've got the Atlanta Federal Reserve saying we're going to have a contraction in the first quarter. Look, I know that you inherited a mess, and you said that the other night.
I've only been here.
Yeah. What mess did he inherit? Seriously, what mess did he inherit? The American economy was literally the envy of the world for the last 3 years. For as much as we were suffering as a result of inflation, compare us to our EU partners, compare us to Canada, compare us to Mexico, compare us to literally every other country on the planet. Biden used to say this a lot, and he wasn't kidding. Biden used to say that every other president or prime minister in the world would have gladly switched places with America and taken our economy over theirs. And he was absolutely right. Absolutely. He was 1000% correct. And by the time Trump came into office, what do you mean you inherited a mess? Inflation had been steadily declining. There was a slight uptick, right after the election, I think. but it topped out around, I think, 9%, dropped down to 2.5 to 3% in that area. Joblessness was at historically sustained levels of low unemployment, like around 4% employment for the longest stretch of time. Stock value had been going up and up and up and up. I don't know what mess he's referring to. Like, there was a situation with egg prices. He definitely inherited that mess. So that doesn't mean I'm not going to blame him for it, because he would be doing the same thing to Biden. But he inherited an economy that had been improving for a year and a half. It's just such bullshit.
But are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition, because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America.
That doesn't sound great. What was Asmon just saying about voting against your interests? What was he just saying a moment ago about voting against your interests?
That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us. I mean, I think it should be great. It's going to be great ultimately for the farmer. You know, don't forget, I made the deal with China on the farmers where they had to buy $50 billion worth of product. $50 billion. Jesus. From 15 to 50.
Did they follow up and do it?
They did it when I was president. What happened is when Biden was president, they didn't buy any longer. Yeah, because there was nobody to call them. I used to call President Xi. I said, you got to do me a favor. You got to, live up to that agreement. And he was great. He did.
Damn.
Before you came into the Oval Office the first time, you were a very successful businessman, very successful real estate executive. And a lot of people said, oh, this is the business president. This is it. He's watching the stock market.
Does Asmon have nothing to say about the fact that Trump basically just acknowledged that we're probably going to have a recession? Does he have nothing to say about this? That seems kind of a big deal. That's for sure the biggest, most consequential part of this interview so far. The president saying like, well, we might have a recession. And he has nothing to say about this?
He knows all about...
He literally, all he said was, uh-oh. That's it. All he said was, uh-oh. That's all he had to say?
The market to go down. And now we've got tariffs and the market has been going down.
Well, not much. I mean, in all fairness.
Oh. What? Who is advising him? Is he just not looking at the sheets? Is he just not looking at the numbers each day? The markets have not gone down all that much in the last month? Really?
You said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that
what he just... That's all you have to add to this is just a laugh track? You guys, unbelievable.
The stock market going down was the disruption. What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
Guys, in 100 years, we're going to be great. Just hang in there. I just need you guys to hang in there for 100 years. And after 100 years, I promise you, all of this, you'll look back and think to yourself, wow, I'm glad we did those tariffs.
That's true.
I think he's very right about that, actually. I think that's a really, really, really good point. And that's been something that I've criticized a lot of companies on, right? And like that's why I was saying like about how I think Japanese companies like Nintendo are doing such a better job than, I don't know, like a lot of American companies that are making games. It's because they're like Blizzard, for example, because they're not thinking in terms of quarterly earnings reports. Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't...
He thinks that Nintendo is not thinking about quarterly earnings reports? Like Blizzard? Yeah, Blizzard's not thinking about quarterly earnings reports? I don't even know what is going on? What is going on? He just said a moment ago, he just told his viewers, never vote against your own self-interest. But then he also says, but you know, you got to trust in a 100-year plan. So you might have to pay an economic price now, but 100 years from now, going to be tits. Everything's going to be great. I feel like this guy's philosophy is so incoherent. I have no idea what Asmongold believes in.